Mark, let's see. Okay, there's the button. Hello, everyone. Just want to welcome you to today's Zoom. It is May 18th, and we have Ian Jackson presenting Watercolor 101, so the basic watercolor procedures. And he has a reference photo that we sent out in an email earlier this week with a traceable picture as well, so that you don't have to sketch out a drawing. And so we got off to a little bit of a rough start with the recording, so that's why it looks like we've done some things already. We did. Ian's going to catch us up on what's on this watercolor paper at this moment, and I'm just glad that we realized the recording wasn't recording. So there you go, Ian. Just catch us up quickly. Sorry about that.
So basically what I did is I was showing you how watercolor is slightly different to heavy bodied paints, where you use in heavy body painting you will use a brushing process. I'll just show you briefly with watercolor. It's more like you're using your brush as a dropper. So I'll get me pen. So I've wet the surface there with lots of water, and I'm gonna go. You see how that went like that? And that really, I'm not brushing. I'm just dropping water into it. Just dropping paint into it. So really, that's the difference between heavy body paint, brushing, and watercolor. And what you do is you let that dry and you build up glazes slowly but surely.
It's really interesting.
So another technique that we just had a look at is that's wet into wet, because I put wet paint into a wet surface, right? Another technique you can use is called wet, i.e. the paint's wet on a dry surface. And this is what happens when you get a dry surface. You get you do with that, you do more brushing as you would do traditionally with oil paints and acrylics, because there's no vehicle to make it move, i.e. the water. You have to make it move. So that's called wet on dry.
Do you typically use one technique over the other, or do you just,
It's a multitude of different effects, and knowing which one works best for which circumstance. Okay.
We've got a lot to learn.
So they are the two basic setups that basically they are the two techniques.
Okay.
You either use wet on wet or wet on dry.
All right.
Yeah.
That's simple.
I'm going to show you now.
Jeri, before you go on, Ian, can I just interrupt for half a second with the group stuff? Does everybody in the Zoom know how to use your chat? Because we're going to let Ian talk and everybody else be muted, and we're going to talk to people on chat if people want to ask questions. Just want to remind people, if anybody has a question about how to do that, wave your hand or raise your hand or something.
If at any time.
Okay, Colleen. Let's unmute Colleen. Colleen, tell us do you know how to find chat on the bottom of your screen, Colleen?
No, I've never been in Zoom.
I thought you might not have.
Sorry, have we started back? Yeah.
Yes.
One thing I did mention earlier, but we had to restart. But using tissue paper or toilet roll or whatever, and what we've been doing there is a way of controlling water. That's how you control water. You either make a pool of water and you drop your paint into it, or you do it dry brush where it's controlled. But if you've got a bit too much water on your paint, or you want to take some of the paint away from your paper, you use your tissue paper and you just blot it, and it stops it and gets rid of it. And that's how you control water, because a lot of people say that they find watercolor difficult because they can't control the water. Well, this is how you control your water. So now we're going to move on to one or two techniques, right, on how to apply paint, right? Watercolor is applied in glazes, in what are called washers, which are thin glazes of transparent paint, right? Now, I want to first of all start with a basic one, and that is called a flat wash, and it's called a flat wash. I'm going to show you what it does. You load your water up, you get some paint on it, make sure that's got plenty of load in your brush, and you go across and don't lift it up. You go like that, keep going, and don't lift it up, keep going, and there you go. That's what's called a flat wash, because it remains the same all the way around. That all depends on how much you paint, how much paint your brush can hold, and it has to be a very wet paint. Right, that's a flat wash. Let me see if I can find a pencil or something.
I have a question, Ian.
Yes.
Do you spray your watercolor paints with water before you start?
I personally don't, but certain paints, especially student paints, may need to be activated again.
Okay.
You can do that.
Thank you, Ian.
But I personally don't, because I mean I use professional paints,
okay,
and they activate quite easily without. All you need to do is literally just put a blob of water on that paint.
Mm-hmm.
See, if you're spraying and reactivating them all, that might weaken the solution of the paint.
Okay.
So all you need to do is just put a blob of water in the paint that you're going to use at that one time.
Mm-hmm.
So, but then again, it is a way of doing it.
All right.
So that one there is a flat wash.
Flat wash, okay.
Right, and that is because it's totally the same all the way down, all the way. Mm-hmm. Right. Your next one is like a flat wash. It's called a graduated wash. Right. Now, remember what I did with that last time, right? I went so far along, didn't I? And I didn't lift it off. I went straight down and continued on. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to lift that off. I'm going to weaken the solution by making it wet with water, and I'm going to continue on to the next level. Yeah, and then I'm going to weaken it again and continue on and weaken it like that, and then wet again and weaken it like that, and then wet again. And can you notice what's happening? I don't know whether my camera can pick it up properly.
Yes, we can see it. It's getting lighter and lighter, paler and paler.
Exactly. So this one, because I'm lifting it up, and applying water and then going with that like that, it gets lighter and lighter and lighter until eventually it gets to the point where it's basically water. In fact, one more stroke is probably where it'll be. There you go, it's just water now. So that is good. This one here is good for skies.
Okay.
And that's the one that is used a lot for skies. And that is called funny we should be talking about graduation because it's called a if I can spell it. I've got it in front of me and I can't even spell it.
That's okay. You know what do you mean? It's
Welcome
graduated.
to Planet Dyslexia.
That's all right.
Graduated or gradated.
Okay.
Gradient wash. That one's that. Now, there's another wash you can do that's similar to that, but it's a slightly different technique. So I'm going to take that. I'm going to do exactly the same as I did last time. All right.
I'm taking notes here, Ian.
Right. Well, you can go back and watch the video, can't you?
Yes, I can.
I've stopped at a certain point, and very quickly, a bit away from it, I'm going to get a completely different colour. Right. About there. Right. See if I can make that a bit stronger. I'm going to bring it up just short of it. And then what I'm going to do is get the water, get some water on it and bring that down and blend those two areas.
Oh.
I am so glad we're recording this.
Yes.
Because I'm so confused.
That is called a variegated wash. That's where two separate colours are blended into each other. Yeah?
Yeah.
You write that one down.
I'm doing it with you, Ian.
If I can spell variegated. There. And you can look all these words up, and there's plenty of videos on YouTube that will explain these in much more detail. Literally, this is like 101.
Okay.
So there's one last type of wash, and it's not very often used, this one. Okay. But what I'm going to do, remember, before I do anything else, I'm going to I'm just going to get rid of this water, because one thing you've got to do is make sure you've got fairly clean water. So I'm going to put that there.
Okay.
About that.
Right. See if I've got a clean thing. I'm totally organised today. And I'm going to put some more water out. Right. So, right. The next thing is, the next one is similar to that. But remember what I did with wet on wet?
Mm-hmm.
I made an area. So I'm going to make a block there. I'm going to make sure it's thoroughly wet. You can't see that at the moment, but I can see that that's wet. Very, very wet. It has a very glazed feel on it there, right? So, you know how I did like a brush stroke and then brought it all together with water? So, with this one, which is called a wet in wet glaze, you do this.
Oh, different colors.
And you let it naturally.
Now, Ian, are you being careful to as to what colors you're choosing, so you don't make mud, or no?
Not at this moment in time, because I mean you can easily make mud. Mud is easy. So mud tends to be made when you get to is it contrasting colours?
Okay.
I think, yeah. And
oh, this is super fun.
This is.
Holy Moses.
Are you following on here?
Yeah. I wasn't
Right.
going.
So that is a wet in wet wash where you can you literally, you wet your paper and you drop your colours in, and I'm just putting water in now, like that. And you know what? You can make some cracking backgrounds off of these, like that. And the good one thing to keep in mind if you want to avoid mud is just keep it to one or two basic colours. So, you know, don't overdo it with the and the more you look, see that now as it's nice and colourful. I'll show you how you can make that into mud.
Just mixing it all together. Okay.
Yeah, once you've mixed it all together, it becomes a neutralized. That's why you don't do brush strokes like that in watercolor, because once you start agitating the paint and stopping it from naturally flowing, that's when it becomes a problem and it becomes mud. You've got a classic mud there. Now I'd use that as a neutralizing tone for various things, but that's another lesson for another day.
Okay.
So okay then, right? So that, get rid of that as well now. That is, oh sorry, I haven't written that down yet, have I? Where's my pencil gone? Oh, there it is. So this is wet in wet, right? So at this stage then, has anybody got any questions about how we apply paint? Or are we okay?
I think everybody's just watching and we're in awe of what's happening.
So, I mean, I've destroyed that one just to show you that we can do that's how you end up making neutral paint by doing too much brushing.
Okay.
So they're the two basic things. One is your control, and two is your application.
Okay, Ian, thank you for those two words. One is control.
Yeah, so you control your water by either doing it wet in wet or wet on dry, and that's your control. Or if you've got too much water, you use your tissue paper, right? Once you've learnt those three things, you learn to control it. You apply it, you paint in these different applications. Flat, which is one all the way, like that. A gradated one where you go across once, lift, apply water, across again, lift, apply water, across again, so on and so forth. And then you do a similar kind of thing for variegated, where you go across once, get another colour, across once, and mix together with water. That's variegated. And then a wet in wet technique where you drop paint in. And they're your applications, and they're how watercolor paintings are done. That's how you do it.
It's a very good demonstration, Ian. This is Mary. Very good demonstration of the different ways that can be done.
It sure is.
Yeah, cool.
So
we're done, right?
They are the foundations. Fair enough, artists do use their own techniques that they've picked up, but this is the foundation of how to start with watercolor painting. And if you can gain control of this particular practice this a lot. Once you've got this practice, you can do any watercolor painting. It's just a matter of you being expressive with color then, you know, what color you want to use. So I don't know how, those of you who are following along with this, I don't know how far you're going to be, because I'm going to put this to one side, and that's as basic 101 techniques over and done with. But
Okay.
we're going to move on to the demonstration now. So
Should we see if there are any questions people
yeah,
want to?
yeah. If anybody wants to do, while I'm getting myself set up, because this is going to be a slightly more complicated thing.
Deborah, I've unmuted you. Did you have any questions about how to use chat? We're kind of being all muted and we're talking to each other on chat if we have questions.
If you all want to unmute at the moment and chat at the moment, because all I'm doing is setting myself up.
Okay, I'll unmute everybody.
Yeah.
Have we all progressed enough?
Yeah.
I have a
To
question.
be able to make a start with the demo.
Well, I have a question before you start with the demo. How do you know which technique to use? Do you just, I don't know, are you winging it or what? Are we going to
well, a lot of it's experimentation until you get used to, like the sky.
Mm-hmm.
If you see the sky and it, I mean, some artists like to do wet in wet and get a certain type of feel.
Mm-hmm.
Other artists like to do wet on dry and get a different type of feel. It all depends on what feel you want in your painting at any one time.
Okay, so
There's no getting it wrong. Once you've got the techniques under control, there's no getting it wrong. How you express yourself is your expression.
All right. Do you start at a particular place? After
Yes, you do. With a painting, you do. Yeah,
Okay.
I personally do.
Okay.
And most of the watercolorists do.
And there's another thing. Like I have Daniel Smith watercolor sticks, and you can apply. You can do that either way. You can, if you look at my other screen, you can work off of the stick.
Yes,
you can put it on your paper and work off of it. You can put it on dry and work off of it. You can make a little wet puddle and work off of it. So there's also different types of watercolor too. Sometimes you can get watercolor in little bottles that's already diluted. You can buy watercolor in the little bottles too.
Yeah. Yeah.
Glad you brought that up.
We're going to look at that in a second. The tools and equipment we're going to need.
Okay.
So I'm glad you reminded me of those, because they're not what are considered to be purist watercolors. Those they are a derivative of them, but they are like Marie says, they are watercolor tools that can give you watercolor painting kind of effects. Yes. So right. First of all, one important. Are we ready for? Are we ready to move forward?
Yes, we are ready to move forward.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Right. One of the most important things about getting a good quality watercolor, what will help you most with your watercolor painting, you might think, oh, I'll go out and I'll buy the best quality paints. Well, yeah, that will help you, but not half as much as what getting a good quality paper will.
Okay.
If you have I'm not saying go out and buy arches and paint on arches. I'm not at all. But there are quality papers out there that you can get, that you can practice on and learn on. I learned to paint on Buckingford by St Cuthbert's Mill, right? It's not a cotton paper, it's a cellulose paper, but it's a very high quality one, and it's not expensive either. But as you learn it, just go out and put a little bit of money into some reasonable quality watercolor paper. Now, watercolor paper, there's all sorts of different weights and different. You might hear the expression hot press, cold press. It all depends on how rough your surface you want it to be. if you want it really, really smooth, you want hot press. If you want it to have a slightly rougher surface, you want it to be cold press. And those two bits of paper come in different weights. You might hear the expression £140, £90, £200. Well, that's the different thicknesses of paper. And the thicker the paper is, the less likely it is to buckle and bend when you wet it, which is not what you want it to do. So that's your paper. But what thoughts have you guys got on paper? Because I don't know what you guys use over in USA.
Let's see. I'm using what is it? 140 pound.
Right.
I'm using Strathmore watercolor paper in a book.
Strathmore. Well, Strathmore are a known company. I can see the Langton. Is it Prestige there, Colleen, or is it Langton?
I've never heard of
Hey,
it.
I tell you what, that's one of my favourite papers, that, Colleen. It really is lovely paper. So it's got a nice crisp. Which one is it? Is it the rough? Can't quite see that.
It says, she says Daler Rowney. It says 100% cotton.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not telling people to go. If people can afford it to practice on, then fair enough. But if you're a starter and a beginner, just use cellulose paper. But yeah, I mean, that is a great paper. What Colleen's using, it's cracking paper. I love it.
Colleen, are you in the United States?
Hmm?
Is she in the United States? I'm wondering. I've never seen that paper.
Daleroni have been making nice paper for many, many years.
Okay.
So,
thank you.
Yeah. So, right. So, what I want to do first is I've got a board, right? A piece of board, and it's important that you have a little board like this, because sometimes you might want to lift your paper up and go like that and move the water around. You know, like you do on an acrylic pour to make it move a bit. You do that with watercoloring sometimes, but today we're just going to leave it flat. So I've got my board, and I'm going to put this down. Everything's going all over the place. I'm gonna tape this down now. Some people like to tape it down all the way around, but because I'm a stingy person, I'm just going to do it on ends.
Okay.
Right. So.
Any particular kind of tape?
Yeah. So I've got this decorator's tape.
Okay.
Some people sometimes use what do they call it? That crafter's tape thing, washi tape.
Okay.
Although that can come up, so be very careful with using that. So literally at these ends, I'm gonna. Normally you go all the way around it like that. I'm not going to do that today because I don't want a crisp edge, because I'm not going near the edge anywhere. I'm going to put that down. And what this will do is when it gets wet, it will help the paper to remember where it was. Because when it dries, it'll go back down to where it were. Right. It must be really boring watching this like this. I'm sure you know how to do all this stuff, but I didn't know. So basically, a couple more places here and there, just to make sure. If you do your painting and you don't work right to the end, that helps, because I'm going to try and keep it as much as I possibly can into centre at painting. Yeah, a couple more there. Preparation is key. And we're virtually ready. Right, so you like I say, you can either go all the way around with it if you've got loads of tape, or you can just do what I've done there. Right, so are we all clear with that? I've got me image, my paper masked down onto the paper. Right. This is where your picture comes in. That you know that the traceable or the drawing. Now, if you're not confident about drawing, this is a way to do it. But if you want to draw it on, then fair enough. But today, so I've got. Let's pretend that this is a printout. It isn't. I'll literally draw it off of the screen onto a piece of tracing paper. So what I'm going to put this out of the way a second while we do this next bit. So I'm going to get, you can either use coloured chalk or a stick of graphite like this, or a pencil, and you just go over the areas where your drawing is, making sure that you've done everywhere. Oh, I mean, if you want to be extra careful about it, you can go over all of it, but you know, I don't want to spend all day doing this. What I would normally do is just do all of it. No, it's not going to do it that. So what you're doing is you're making yourself, I mean, you could use that transfer paper over the top of it if you wanted. And like I said, if you haven't got anything like a graphite stick, use a coloured piece of chalk. But just be careful how you use it.
Ian, does that matter if that piece of graphite that you're using is water soluble or non-soluble? Does it matter?
It's irrelevant. I mean, not naturally. Graphite is non-soluble naturally. You can get some graphite that is, but all we're doing is we're using it to transfer this image.
Okay.
You know the printout that you will. I assume you guys will have a printout, right? On the back of your printout, you just need to cover it all, you know, like that.
Okay.
Or if you've got some tracing paper, just put some tracing paper on the back of it, and then. So I think that's all done. I think, right? I'm going to bring my picture back in now, and I'm going to centre it on this paper. Now I've already gone to the great length of putting some marks. So,
Ian, I have a question.
Yeah.
When you're watercoloring over this, these lines are going to keep showing after you.
No, because you're only going to put it on very light. So, you're not going to put it on that hard that it. In fact, strangely enough, some watercolorists like to show the pencil work in their art as well. So sometimes it depends. But if it's too strong before you start painting, just nip it down with a rubber.
I was going to say that too, that some watercolors, it's part of a watercolor technique to leave some of the pencil lines in there.
Definitely. I mean, yeah. It does add to the actual image, but sometimes it does, sometimes it don't. You'll find that you will find that they will cover over vast majority. So what I'm doing is I put it where I want it. I'm going to get some more of that masking tape. If I can find end of this. Here we are. Oh dear, what's happened with this? It's the second I'm having some technical difficulties with my masking tape. Who would have known?
Naturally. Naturally, while you're on the air, you're going to have technical difficulties.
Right. So I'm going to put that on my paper there, on my tracing, and stick it down like that, and put one there. So what you've done is you've created an hinge.
Oh.
Right. Let's say I'm halfway through a drawing. That means you don't have to hold it like that, and or
Right.
that it's not moved. It won't move because I've got it taped down. And if I want to go and look and go, oh, I've missed that bit, it's not going to move. So I can go over it. So let's now start doing as, I just want to try and get a normal pencil if I can find one. I'm going to be very quickly. Come on, pencil. Why can I not find anything? I don't need that now. Right, I'm just going to use this. One of the best tools for doing this is one that's run out, a pen that's run out. So basically, I'm just going to go around certain areas.
Mary, how did you get yours down on the page? Did you just sketch it on?
If you've got the confidence to sketch it on, by all means, do it. So literally, you're following all these guidelines.
Yes, I'm sorry, Barb. I had to go back into my Zoom because I actually did sketch it on because I couldn't print it off. So my paper is wider. I'm working on 9x15. So I sketched it on with a water-soluble pen, which kind of eases those lines out a little. It doesn't erase them entirely.
Okay. That's good.
I did tape it down. I taped it down to the back of a cardboard piece.
Mary's a very competent drawer, aren't you?
Yeah, drawing's my skill. I won't say watercolor is, Ian, but drawing is something that I am very comfortable with. Yeah. I'm not perfect, I'm just comfortable.
I'm only doing this because I'm aware that there are certain people who don't have an awful lot of confidence in the drawing.
Yeah, and that was a good thing to do, Ian. That was really a good thing to do. I'm going to put myself back on mute.
Actually, do you know what I'm looking into a lot more these days? It's called direct painting. I don't know whether you know what that is. That's where you don't have a drawing at all. You just go direct to the substrate, the paper or whatever you're doing, and you paint directly on it without any drawing. Now, obviously it's a lot easier if you're doing things that are simple, but you know, I've seen some people do some of these kinds of pieces of art with no drawing at all, and they're absolutely fantastic pieces of work. So it's something I'm definitely trying to look at, but obviously it's for those people who probably have got a bit more confidence and experience in their art than most people.
Definitely.
So, I've got to say, I've had to go at it myself, and I've had mixed things happen. Some have turned out fine, and some have turned out not as well as I ought to have turned out. So as you can see, I'm still drawing all this out. It is a long, slow process, this, but we will reach.
Well, I went ahead and braved it and sketched it.
Well, that's good, because at the end of the day, if you can do that every time you do a sketch and a drawing, it helps your muscle memory.
Yes, it does.
So be able to draw something like that again in the future. And the more you practice drawing, the easier it gets. It's like any art, really. You get to a stage where you're pretty competent after a while with it, and what was once a massive challenge to you becomes pretty standard practice. So I wouldn't overly concern myself if I couldn't do something straight away. It's just a matter of getting your brain in gear. Mind you, with me, that takes many, many thousands of years. So, right, so roughly, hopefully that's done it. I've got my picture onto my paper. Let us see.
Cool.
Yeah, it is. Now, the reason why I've got it taped down is because I can see areas that I've not done. So I can go back down now. I can put it back down, and I can see for a fact that I've not done that one. Which other one didn't I do? That one. Now that might be because I didn't put. Nah, that's because I didn't put no thing on that. I missed it. I'm gonna just put that there. I mean, minor things like that you can adjust on paper anyway. I think that's pretty much everything I need. All right, this here I didn't put any on this side. I mean, it's not critical that there, but let's. Because thing is, I want this to be fluid anyway. So I'm not going to be following the pencil marks too much. Right. No, I've missed a bit there, but I'll put that in a second. So once you're happy with it, you've got everything that you want, take it off. Oh dear. Excuse me. All right. So we're ready now to paint. Time to paint. So can everybody see everything I'm doing from there? Yeah. Unfortunately, because I'm zoomed in, you're not going to see some of the palette. It's not important. I'll try and explain what colours I'm using. And at the end of the day, colours are irrelevant. You can use whatever colours you want, as long as you keep the tonal values right. Because that's more important. Now, before we go any further, I want to talk to you about the tool that we use, right? What sort of tools you guys have you got? Do you have at least one of these?
Yes.
Yes.
That's a pointed brush, right? Now, that's one.
I got this little kit of colors.
Traditionally, these are mops, and these are for covering large areas. That's an ooh, what am I doing? That's an oval, and that's a big mop.
Oh,
yeah. Now, if you have them, fine, fair enough.
Yeah.
But if you haven't,
Ian, do you use any flats when you watercolor?
occasionally, yeah. That's a flat, but problem is with flats is you get very, very strong edges with them.
Okay.
We don't necessarily want these create much more fluffier, softer edges, especially when you're talking about doing sky.
Yeah.
So if you haven't got anything else, that will do, one of these. But you've got to recognize that those edges there will create a very crisp edge, and you don't necessarily want that. So, but you best. I mean, some other brushes that are worth thinking about. A filbert. If you've got a filbert, that might work. But we're doing quite a large area here, so what brushes have you got that are like a mop, a large brush that's a mop?
I found this one completely unused.
Oh, that one, that will be fine, AJ. That's a great brush. Colleen, they're fine as well. Just put your brushes up what you've got, and then I'll know.
I got these guys.
Just need to tootle along a little bit, and yeah, the one that has the white bristly bit, Barbara, that'll be great.
Cool.
Any one of them will do, Jeri.
Cool.
The larger the better, for right.
The larger the better. Okay.
The technique you start with,
That's the way.
with watercolor, you start large and work slowly but surely smaller as you get more detailed.
Okay.
That's the technique with watercolor. So I'm going to use this. I'm going to use this oval one. But what you have as a big brush is up to you, right? So the first thing that you do, right, what you do is you work from farthest away to nearest to you, and then that gives you a sense of depth. But what we're going to work with is something called atmospheric perspective. Now, what that is something closer to you has more definition and more colour.
Right.
Than something in the background. You might have seen mountains. The farthest away mountain will be very, very grey. The closest mountain, you might see the grass on the mountain that's green. So the closer it gets, the more detail you see. So, and that's the same with the sky. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to make this like a sky area up here, kind of semi-wet, semi-dry. Now, so I'm going to go. Still got some paint in it, huh? There you go.
Okay, so you're doing the wet on the sky.
Yeah, I'm getting it all wet and watery there.
I'm going to go get some more water.
Right. And then I'm going to start applying a strong coat at this end, right? With the painting, do you know what? Before I go any farther, I need to put the actual image up on my computer because I don't know what it is I'm painting. Right. Oh no.
Ian, do you have to work fast because it's dry?
You do, yeah, to some degree. You have, with certain things, you have to work really fast.
Okay.
So, right, you may, well, that's why you put plenty of water on. Don't be stingy with the water. Get tons on, loads. It's watercolor paper. It needs water. Look how much water I'm pouring on.
All right, so you are putting a lot of water on. So, like, if it starts to dry out, is that okay? And we'll just put more water?
Whether it's got that glaze of water on it, you can work with it.
Okay.
So I'm going to get me paint now, my blue paint, which is generally ultramarine blue, which is a standard sky. I'm going to work from this end and go And right, atmospheric perspective, is it light on this, right, is coming from this direction. That's where so things in this area are going to be lighter than things in that area.
Okay.
I'm going to get some more in. And don't worry about skies being slightly streaky, because if you've ever noticed, skies are slightly streaky, even the blue areas. They're never one like natural colour, just one blank colour. I've never seen a sky that's just one blank colour. There's always slight differences in the sky. And I'm going to come down a certain amount, not too heavy, into what is basically the cloud area. And that there then becomes the skyline where the land is. So I'm coming down there, and right, that's all that area done. I might just now take right, I'm gonna get me toilet roll and lighten her up a bit. And where my clouds are, where I want my clouds, scrunch it up into a scrunchie and go. Now I might have to do this a couple of 3 times. That for speed, I mean, you just think, I wouldn't normally do this, but I'm going to use my heat gun. If you've got an heat gun, do it, but I wouldn't normally do this. We're on limited time and I've got several layers to do. So, heat gun. Right, that's dried enough so that I can put another layer on it. If I could find my brush. How come things vanish in front of your eyes? I can't believe I can't find it. I've lost the brush.
You have gone far, Ian. You didn't get up. Do you use white for the white stuff, or do you just leave it empty?
No. You don't ever use white.
Okay.
There are certain elements of using white that you can do in certain other techniques, but for this, no, because all it'll do is make it look opaque and it just will not look right.
Okay.
So that's still wet, but I'm going to introduce an element of dryness to it. So I'm just doing dry paint now on slightly wet. So I'm going to go. Needs to be a little bit wetter. And look, I'm not being overly deliberate about this. Yeah. And that's sky done, roughly.
Well, sort of. Okay.
only thing I'm going to do, right, let's have a look at the fact that the sun is coming from that direction, right? So where would be on the clouds? Where would the grey areas be that are in shade? So I'm gonna tap this. I'm gonna make a grey, horrible grey colour, a dull grey colour. Think dull grey sky, right? Which you can do by just mixing lots of different colours together. You get a neutrally grey, and then you can put a little bit of purple in it just to add a little bit of colour, right? And this needs to be fairly dry in the application, and you go.
A gray. You know, I don't have a black or white in my kit.
You shouldn't need to. If you want to make black, right? I'll show you how to easily make black without it being a big issue. All right.
Actually, I've got some on my thing here.
Mm-hmm. So
colors.
The best and easiest way to make black, right, is if you've got some burnt umber brown, which is a dark brown, right? It's a dark brown there, like that. Let me. And then get some ultramarine blue. And there you go, black. And that's the reason why people don't use a black paint. It's too stark, it's too strong. You can use black for tinting certain colours.
Perfect, thank you.
But
so excited.
That's the easiest way to make black. And it, I mean, with all the earthy tones like burnt umber and burnt sienna and yellow ochre, it works perfectly. So anyway.
And we want to come under.
So I'm not being overly precise today with my painting. I'm working quite fast here. I'll just in certain areas, right, you need to have things called lost and found edges, right? What that means, for example, if you look at that there, that's quite a strong edge. So if I get a brush and I paint into it, and it takes that edge away.
Okay.
And you find edges that you can soften. You don't soften every edge.
Right.
You look and say, does that need to be softened? Can I? And you can put several layers of this grey on it and build it up. I'm being fairly abstract today, to be honest with you. I want to move on to the sky is important. But I want to move on to other matters. One thing I haven't done there. I think that needs to be done.
This is so cool.
Right.
Is everything done?
So as far as I'm concerned, that's the sky done. Right.
Got it.
Making sure, and I will make sure, that your sky is totally dry. I'm going to move on to this distant landscape here. Right. So I'm just going to heat gun around that area. I wouldn't normally do this. I'd let it just dry naturally. But in this circumstance, I'm going to I'm going to heat gun it. Right. That'll be fine. Right. Moving on to another brush. And use whatever brushes you've got, a smaller brush, because we're doing this little area now. All right. Again, we're going to use that same principle of these hills here are closer than what that set of hills are and that set of hills are. So these are going to be vibrant in colour, and they are going to be less and less and less until you get to a grey. And maybe that's what I'll probably do first. Actually, let's mix a grey colour that's slightly darker than that grey above there. See if I can tease it into being a bit more greyer. That's it. So, and you might say, oh well, that landscape ain't grey, it isn't. But believe me, oh, and don't worry about that being dark there at the moment, because it will go lighter. You'll be surprised how light that goes. Right. So using that grey again, I'm going to introduce a teeny weeny little bit of yellow to it. A bit more grey in again. Because this one here, this hill, and I'm going to dab like that. And as we get far away, I'm going to make that make that colour less pronounced. Right, so we start establishing more colour now as we get closer. And I'm not brushing. I'm just putting water in areas and dropping it in. So your next area is that.
And Ian, you're not wetting the paper first, right? Again.
Sometimes I am, like that, for example.
Okay.
All right. And sometimes I'm just dry brushing it in, and that's to get different textures.
Okay.
All right. So, because all this is really background, you don't need to do a huge amount of colour. And as you get closer, as I said, you get more creative with colour and tonal value. So, as we get to here, I'm going to make this bit of the hill much more colourful. Plenty of water on. All right. And I believe that comes right down. Does it come round? Have I made a mess of that? No, I'm all right. Right, so all that's wet, as you can see there. And you create valleys and gullies and things like that in it. Blah, 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 blah. There could be trees in background. So what that's done is created a background that's got it's gone from being quite colourful there into the distance more and more as you get far away, and it's got less and less colour value, and it's just, when it's got to there, it's become just a grey. Now you can, to some degree, right, we're going to move on to doing the sea now. You don't see an awful lot of the sea in this. But before I go any farther, because I don't want that bit of land there blending into the sea area, I'm going to heat gun that. Because you don't want it happening. You may need to go over this at some point. In fact, it will need probably another layer. How's everybody getting on?
That's all I have to say about that. A giggle.
Took too much off. Oh, maybe not.
Don't quit your day job yet, Jeri.
How are we doing for time?
Mm-hmm. Oh, I don't know. I didn't even look at the time. It's 2:30. We have an hour and a half.
An hour and a half?
Yep.
Yeah, we'll get finished. Right, so I'm going to mix up again some ultramarine blue. Right, and I'm going to go across this. There's a little bit here that you see of the water. I assume this is like a lock in Scotland or something like that. I think it is anyway. And then there's your water here that goes across, and I'm going to put that across there first. All right. And really get rid of all paint I can off it, and do a dry brush across this. And just like get it. Because it's in distance, you don't have to overly, like, you know, overdo it. They're just background things. Now that's a little bit drier, this bit, I'm just going to go back over it with some darker, different colouring to re-emphasise the there you go, because it does dry 30 or 40% lighter than what you put it on. There you go. Right, and again, can you see these strong edges? You lost and found, they call them, and you can get rid of certain bits and, you know, break it up a bit like that. Yeah. And it just gets rid of that hard edge that you can sometimes get in the painting. Right, we're on to foreground now. We never thought we'd make it. So we've got this bit here, which is grass. So you always work light to dark. All right. So let's make a mixer, a lemon yellow.
So we do the grass before we do the house?
Yeah, you always work from the background to the foreground. So there's I'm not on about this grass. I'm not on about this grass here. I'm on about this grass here.
I gotcha.
There's grass there and there's grass there that's in front of the house. So I'm going to get some lemon yellow and I'm going to make it nice and wet and watery. First of all, I'm going to put some water in it so that it like that. Yeah.
Okay.
So it's got a covering of water, and then I'm going to go in and go like that. And then after that, put a bit of blue in instead. like that. And just break it up a bit. And let that do its thing. And leave it for a while. And go elsewhere now and do exactly the same. Wet that area that you want to paint, you know, with plenty of water. Get some light colours in first, and then this has a much darker area to it, so I'm going to put a different green in it, mix in with a little bit of brown, so you've got a really dark kind of green. So I don't know whether you can't really see it, because I'll see if I can get that to go up there. Right, so it's got this really dark looking green. Can you see that? And then it's almost as though this area is in shade somehow. And while we've got some of that paint and that's still wet, you can always put little bits of. Don't overdo it though, because once you've committed a dark colour to a light area, there's no going back. Right. Right. Now, literally, we've got the house to do. So, what decision I've got to make is, all right, before I go any farther on, I just want to knit some of that out so that that doesn't bleed into there. In fact, I'm going to dry that. And I'll dry that as well. Right. This building, if you look in the reference, it's all very white, but I am going to do something slightly different with it. It might seem a bit weird, this, but to bring a painting all consistent, you need a key colour in it, and what I've used a lot of already is this lemon yellow. So that I'm going to use that as a key colour throughout that. So I'm just going to get water. I'm going to cover virtually all of it like that. Make sure I've got plenty of water on it, all that area. And we're going to start building tonal values in. The darkest area is that there and a little bit of that.
Right.
Because light is coming in from there, and this bit is shaded. So, right. But first, we're going to still put the light colour in, even into the dark areas, because that's the starting point. And this year I'm just not going to be putting an awful lot of paint on that bit there. And now we've got that area got its light values in, we want to start thinking about some midtones. So what I'm thinking about is something like what do they call it? Yellow ochre or something like that. Although in this set I don't seem to have any yellow ochre, unless that's yellow ochre, I don't know. So that's like a sandy colour. So that will be my mid-tone. So the areas that will have mid-tone, that bit like that. and it's there. I'm not putting it everywhere because I want it all to naturally blend. See what I can do. Right. Just dabbing that off for a bit of control. And now we can start thinking about getting his dark tones in. But you notice I'm not doing like every little brick and every little crack and every little... I'm not. I'm just giving an interpretation of what it might look like. And you might need to do several layers of this to get this right. Take bits out and put bits in, and this is where you have to think about when and when not to do any more painting with it. So I'm gonna, normally you'd let it dry, but I'm gonna dry it with heater. How are we doing, everybody?
I have nothing to say. Yeah.
Yeah, well, at the end of the day, you're having a go, and that's what matters. Regardless of whether it's the world's best painting or whether not, you're having a go at it, and that's absolutely what matters. Right, let's continue in a similar vein with that. So other areas that have that similar kind of thing is that, and that as well. And you notice how I'm not being like finicky and detailed and things like that. You must not do that when you're doing watercolor painting. Go so detailed that you got to try and be loose with it, because watercolor itself is loose. Water is a loose substance, so you got to try and think in terms of that. Right, there's a building there as well. Just see if I can get some kind of differentiation there. Right. Now we've got that in and that in and that in. We're I'm thinking about shadows here now. So right, for the roof, I'm gonna dry brush that. If you notice on the actual reference image, you can see all the individual tiles. You don't want to do that. Do not paint every individual tile. Just make your brush really dry and just stroke. Well, get enough paint on your brush here. Come on. Stroke, stroke, like that. Then across. And that is basically your first layer of your roof done. And you just build up on top of that with slightly darker colours. don't be painting individual little bits of detail. Just re-emphasizing them. What I now want to do with that, assuming that, because that were done dry brush, it's going to be dry enough for me to start thinking about putting some shadows in. That's that. This area, you've got your chimney there, that's going to be dark. That's going to be dark. A few details like that. Bit of texture. And as you can see, I'm not being massively deliberate. It's very, very loose what I'm doing. There might be a little bit of shadow under there. Dependent on where you think the light is, there might just be a bit of darkness there. I'm going to add a bit more of that, and try and in your painting as well, try to like join things together if you can, you know, like areas like that and areas, you know, give it like a, you know, something that's coherent throughout of it. Coherent. And very quiet kind of painting experience, isn't it?
Yes.
I'm not used to not hearing you all.
I know everybody's being quiet because they're concentrating.
Yeah, you see, that's why I'm generally quiet. See, I've got there's some little furry animals here, but I think I've bodged. Anyway, I'm just going to suggest that there's some sheep here.
I could talk. Mary can talk.
Mary's.
You are an experienced artist, though, Mary. You can.
No, I was saying I could talk.
Oh.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You were saying how quiet everybody was. I'm usually talking when I shouldn't be. I was trying to shut up.
Oh. Well, but I mean, we're not that far off end at actual painting, so I'm putting the early parts of this fencing. It's got a little fence there, and you don't have to be. I mean, honestly, you're not creating the fourth bridge here. You're just doing a little. There you go. It don't even have to look as though it's all together.
It's my photo. My picture is barely discernible to be a building in the middle of the wherever we are. It's like
Right, so
what
island.
Mine looks like, what is this slop? Anyway,
but Jeri, that's okay. You know, that's where you are in your skill area. Don't criticize yourself.
No, at the end of the day, what you're doing is you're having a go, and that's the right thing to do. And slowly,
I can't see it, Jeri.
No, I don't want you to. I'm just looking at it. I'm thinking my mother would be.
You'll slowly but surely focus more. You'll focus more and more, and you'll eventually get those abilities to say, yeah, I can alter that, I can alter this, I can do that, and you'll gain control of it. So don't worry about it. Everybody
have a hard time
where they've got to learn the skills.
I have a hard time with the direction of the light and the shadows.
Well, what I do, right, I'll just, I mean, I sometimes forget, when I'm in the middle of a painting, you can become micro-focused.
Mm-hmm.
and just concentrate. Don't do that. Look at the image as a whole, right? And what I do is,
Very bad.
what I do at the edge of my paper or somewhere, I give myself a visual reference,
Mm-hmm.
and I go like this.
Okay. So that you know, yeah, that you remember that that's where I'm not good with shadows. I've never been.
Light comes from there.
Mm-hmm.
Now I think that's pretty close to being dry. I'm going to give it one last really dark tone in various areas all over the building. So I'm going to build up from all my dark colours, as many as I've got dark colours, my browns and my dark blues and my dark greens, and I'm going to build that up, right? Still making it watery, but it's dark, and I'm going to go, and that's throughout me, all of that building, just to give it that extra punch of darkness. Anywhere that it needs dark. Might be a bit there. There you go. And that for me is the building itself done. Right, so now what I want to do is go back to my lights, because I'm going to do this grass here, and then that's a picture complete. I might want to come back to some areas over here and improve it, but as far as that's concerned, it's done, really. So I'm going to go back to my key colour again, that lemon yellow. I'm going to wet my paint, get some water, and flood that area with like that. And I'm also going to get some more water around there and do that. Water and this area. Make sure I have plenty of water. You're going to need lots for this. Lots of water. Lots. Right, let's now start getting some. I want that area to be very, very light, and then coming up to here, splodge. Right, let's see if I can dry certain areas off and get rid of it. Just to give it a bit of randomness. Get some more of that, and while it's wet. Pounce. Right. Now, let's move on to his mid-tones. Because it's wet, it'll just like kind of less detail the farther away you get, more detail the closer you are. But we'll come back over this area anyway. Now this area will be slightly dark because there's a bit of shading from the building. Let's see if I can get a bit of definition there. And again, that's going to be, this area here will be incredibly dark because I think there's a bit of the building shading that area. And to contrast that, just to make sure that you can tell there's a difference, I'm going to put a lot of light area there. And then some more. Right. Start getting your darker areas in. How far are you guys off from
Tossing
getting, how far are you guys off from finishing?
Yeah, I don't know. Looks pretty bad. I could call it a day.
Well, there ain't an awful lot more I can do with this painting now, so I'm not far off. I'll get it to dry and then give it another extra bit of a coat.
Well, it looks kind of interesting from the camera.
Yeah.
It's showing me something it's darker here than it is here, and maybe that's okay. I don't know.
I don't know. What do you mean?
It's darker on this side than it is on this side.
It's supposed to be, Barbara.
It is?
It is. Remember, this side here is probably going to have a lot more light coming into it.
Okay.
That side here will have a tiny bit of shade.
Okay.
Because of the building.
Okay.
So
you got it covered.
Yeah. So I'm going to do it. I just
I'm
want
going
to
to think of what I want to do for my roof.
Well, remember what I did is I got a fairly dry brush. I got some grey paint, made a grey paint, and I don't want to go over it again because it'll mess it up.
No, don't go over it again.
And I like scraped it down with a dry brush, so you've got very dry.
Dry brush, okay.
Yeah. Let me just show you on this, right? So, very dry. So, I'm pushing it down as hard as I can. You see how it's making lines?
Oh, I see.
Like that. You want to go like that with it. But before it dries, you want to go as well like that.
Okay.
But don't do loads of it. You're not doing detailed work. You're just giving an impression. And there you go, that's a roof. That's all you need to do for roof. But if you want to add a little bit more, stronger value into it, right? Again, make your brush dry, and then now and again, just add little flecks of. There you go, and that's a roof done. We at it being finicky and every little square painted, because in watercolor painting you don't do that. You don't overly mess about with detail. You suggest it, and that's the important part, the suggestion. I'm just going to get some darker tones here in foreground, and that's just literally just faffing about with brush like that, just to add texture. Might go.
Okay. I got it.
Bit of splatting here and there. And I'm gonna call that finished. So
Yeah, look, it came out pretty good.
It really did.
Mhm.
I thought it'd take a bit longer than what I thought it was going to do, but yeah, maybe I mean I might put a bit more punch into the clouds, because it's probably not got enough. So I'm going to mix up some more strong grey and but don't lose any of that white.
All righty then.
Yeah, is there a bit up there as well? Might just introduce a teeny weeny bit of texture to that. Not much. Just, oh yeah. And that's one of the great problems with watercolour as well, knowing when to stop. Just because I'm notorious for overdoing it. Well, if you wanted, you know, in this foreground area, you could put some nice, pretty flowers rather than just grass. You could put blues and red splatty flowers in it. Another good technique is get your other end of your brush while these blobs are wet, and go like that. And it's instant grass. See if I can. There you go. Yeah, that's it. That's me done. I won't be a second, though. I'll be back in a minute.
Right.
Normally, if you get white in a set, it's used for tinting colour. For example, if I need a really light pink, I can't find a convenience colour that is the one that I need. You can't always water red down to the colour that you need it to be. So what you do is you add white to the colour when you're mixing it. So it tints the colour. It gives it a lighter colour without it losing it's what they call its mass tone, if you know what that is.
I'm done.
So that's one way of doing it. Some watercolor artists will use white as an effect. When you've got a very wet area, you can splash white into it to like push color away. But what you have to be careful of is white is not the same as the white on your paper. So it always looks a bit weird. That's why watercolor artists avoid it.
Now, if you look at my clouds here, you can see that that's paper. My clouds are paper. I didn't touch that with white, but I've been touching my building with white because actually I like the texture that the white paint gives. But I do notice that I kind of have to go over it several times because the white tends to want to blend in with the color that's always there, which is okay because these buildings are kind of a gray color anyway.
So for me, they are, yeah. What you might be best off doing rather than using white watercolor is gouache.
Yeah.
You'll find
I don't have any gouache, but I did get out some ink, but it was a pearl ink. But I don't have any gouache, but I completely agree.
Now, you've just reminded me. I were going to talk about various types of watercolor paints, right? What you get them in. Right, so under normal circumstances, can you see these paints? Yeah, you get them in tubes.
Yes.
Generally. That's the tube form of watercolor paints, and you get them in three standards: academic paint, which is for children, right? And then you get student paints, which are for people who are serious students of watercolor painting, which is your middle one. And you get professional paints, which they're very expensive, but they are for professional work, and they have different quality to the other two, but they all come in either tubes like these, or they come in these things called pans. That is a full pan, and that's a half pan. Now, as Mary said earlier, they do come in other formats as well, although they're not standard formats. You can get sticks that like Daniel Smith's, for example, which is a stick of watercolor. It's like a stick of watercolor, but it must be bound in something. But they're a little bit like, there are quite a few companies who do like water soluble pencils. They're kind of like those, but Daniel Smith's more a stick of watercolor. You also get other watercolors that are liquid form, like Hydrus by Dr. Martens, which it's almost like an ink, but it's a watercolor. Again, highly pigmented, and you need a tiny little drop, and you can use that for the entire painting. But these are the normal standard formats, and you can get them in sets, or you can buy them individually and build up. What I did when I first did my first professional set is I built a set of these up over a period of a few months, because one of them can be, I don't know, probably around $10. If not, I don't know exactly how much they are in America, but they're about £7 or £8 for me to buy in UK. So I'm assuming that's around about $10.
Was that a professional brand, Ian, or was that?
Yeah, that's Winsor & Newton.
Okay.
Professional.
Yeah, Ian, that's about what they're running. Those watercolor, Daniel Smith watercolor sticks, they're about the size of a fat Crayola, or maybe think of a nice long 3-inch pastel. And they cost around $11. A couple years ago, they might have gone up $1 or $2 now. But let me tell you, they last a long time. Oh, I mean, it's like working off of a long pan of watercolor, a 3-inch pan of watercolor. I like them a lot. They're very much worth their money. I wanted to say that Monica had a question. She says, what level is between academic and professional tube paints? So what
Student,
level?
student quality paints.
And so when you're out buying watercolor paint, you can almost assume that the cheaper paints are going to be the student quality paints. They don't say.
Yeah, well, it depends where you shop. Some start at the academic level, and they're generally very, very cheap, and they're almost like, you know, when you were a kid and you had a piece of paper put in front of you, and they give you some paints, and that is virtually academic level, right? The more serious paints are a step above that, and they're called the student paints, and they're basically a slightly lower quality version of professional paints, but they're a lot cheaper because they put fillers in them to, you know, so that they don't have to put as much pigment and paint in it. But you do suffer the consequences for that. And that what best thing I did in watercolor, I automatically moved forward with my painting tenfold when I moved on to using professional paints and professional paper. So
I would agree with that to a certain point, because I know when I started when I was doing that acrylic April, and you know, I was started out using the craft acrylics, that then Mary Ann sent me some heavy bodied, just artist professional paints, and the difference is just, it's astounding. It's just, you know, and you look at it, and the color's so vivid. It has so much pigment in it, and I would imagine that the watercolors are the same way.
Oh, you'll find the level of pigment in a professional paint is tenfold more than what it is in a student paint. I'm not saying go out and if you knew, learn how to paint first and use a good quality student paint. A good quality student paint, right, is made in America, and I'm assuming you're mostly all in America, is Grams. They have a student paint, and that is reasonably priced, but good quality. And if you learn off of something like that, then great. Another brand I recommend that's cheap but is professional is what I've been using today, right? And it's White Knights. They are, if you can find them on Amazon or something like that.
I think Dick Blick carries White Knight. Dick Blick carries White Knight.
Do they? Right.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, honestly, fantastic professional entry grade professional paint. If you're wanting to step up from being student to pro quality, I would recommend White Knights, and that's what I've used today. Are you speaking, Jeri? You're muted.
I'm sorry. Yeah, I am. That's why you're not answering me.
No.
What was the name of that paint you said that was in America that was a good baseline paint? I didn't understand.
A good their paint is one of the world's top professional paints, but they do a student range, and it's M. Graham's.
Okay, I never heard of it. Anybody here ever hear of that?
Yeah, they sell them. They check Dick Blick sells several different brands.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and what's that? Oh,
somebody's holding
landscape watercolor.
Colleen's holding her picture up. Landscape watercolor set. She's holding that up.
Oh, very good. And what's
Oh,
that?
that's-
Who's that by? Unmute yourself,
Can I unmute you?
Colleen.
Colleen, I'm going to unmute you. Can you tell us who that's by?
Yeah, this is by the Grams he's talking about, and
Yeah.
I didn't actually use it on this painting. I like them because you can buy them in sets, like
Yeah.
this landscape, which I probably could have used here, and then dual tone. And I like that they separate them for you when you're beginning. You know, I mean, and you don't know what to use together. And I
Right,
bought these on Amazon,
Great.
and I like how they're done for you. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, you don't have to think about what colour sets that you put. If you've got experience in painting, you can put your own sets together. But if you're fairly new, getting a set is a good idea.
Monica put a link in the chat.
Yeah, that's great. And honestly,
Yeah.
you can't really go wrong if you're wanting to make a start in watercolor painting. They're one of the best companies on planet.
Okay, that's good to know.
And I mean, obviously, if you take it to the other extreme and you want really top end, you go and you get something like what they call it, Daniel Smith's. But by the time you're buying Daniel Smith's, you ought to be a person who knows what you're doing with them. Because they are very expensive.
Yeah.
I was playing with Rembrandts for this,
Right.
and I was combining that, and because I was trying to copy the colors you were using, and I was playing with core.
Yeah, and again, they're both. I mean, Rembrandt's is that by Royal Talon?
Yes.
Yeah, they're another good quality professional watercolor. Although I don't know how easily got hold of they will be in America. Did you get them off of Amazon?
I did. I got them off of Amazon, and they came with this case already in here. They aren't the two. You know, I mean, they came already.
I mean, that is a very serious watercolor investment, that. Because they're not cheap, are they? Especially over in USA for you.
Yeah.
But again, they are one of the world's top watercolor paints. They are Europe's version of Daniel Smith's, I would say.
Oh, that's good to know. I chose Wyatt's then.
Oh yeah, they're a top brand. Rembrandt's by Royal Talon. Yeah.
Awesome.
So
Royal Talons also makes the FW inks, I think.
No, FW inks are made by De La Rone.
Uh,
I think Ian's right.
Yeah,
I think, FW
definitely.
I thought it was Royal Talons.
No, Royal Talons do an ink very similar to it. The bottles look pretty much similar as well. So
I definitely think I'm gonna work on the clouds with the gouache. I think I'm gonna try that.
You could do, yeah. But be careful, because you can very easily mud things up by... you might be better off. I tell you what is a good tool if I can find it. Do you have a magic eraser?
Oh, I do have that.
A magic clean. Wet that with some clean water and see if you can pull it away.
Oh, good idea.
Interesting.
Rather than add more paint, because the more paint you paint on, the more it looks overworked. And don't scrub with the magic eraser. Don't scrub. Dab. Dab, 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 dab.
Those magic erasers are good for everything.
Yeah. It's perfect for watercoloring.
Does anyone have any questions? Because I'd love to do a show and tell.
Yeah.
Any questions?
Make sure your water's nice and clean before you use that magic eraser.
Okay, I cut
It
that
has
off.
to be clear water.
Oh, clear. Got it.
Yeah.
Should we do a show and tell, Ian?
Yeah, you can do, because I'm done and sorted. Really. Oh, other than, I mean, if we're not quite ready, I'll just do an overrun of what we've done.
Okay.
today. Okay, so we'll go back to the beginning, right? What we did is we said, right, control. You can control your paint by putting your water down first, and wherever you dab your paint in the water, that's where it goes. That's wet in wet. Your other control system is your paint being wet, but your paper being dry. So it only goes where you brush it, as long as there's nothing wet near it. Your final control system is if you've got too much water, you just dab a bit, right? So there's no, it won't leak away. So that will control. Oh no! Just a second. Nobody ever know. Your final situation. Sorry, your next bit is application. You can apply paint in a flat wash, which just goes like that, and you don't leave, the brush doesn't leave the surface. It goes all the way along. You can put a graduated wash where you put your paint down first, lift it up, put some water on it, and then go across, lift it up, put some more water on it, and it slowly but surely gets lighter and lighter and lighter. That's a graduated wash. Then you have a variegated wash where you have more than one colour. One across there, and between it you put some water and you let it flow into one another, and that's a variegated wash. And then wet into wet, which we destroyed. But you create a wet area and you drop various colours in and they all blend. But we destroyed that to show how you can make a grey. So that were it. That's what we did there in a control and application. And then we went on to do the painting, which demonstrates some of those things that we've done. So
it was a great lesson, Ian. It was really.
Yes, it was. I loved it.
Yeah, thank you so much for showing us. I'm going to stop the recording now, and then I'm going to, so I'm going to stop. So thank you so much, Ian.
All right.